Okay, we're live on, is that on YouTube? Sweet. What's up?
Sweet. Cool. Let me bring up the chat here.
Recording in progress.
They come. Here we go.
Here we go. And the gates have opened.
Go, 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 go.
What's up, guys? Yo, yo, yo. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
All you beautiful people, welcome.
Yes. Yes,
Go,
yes.
go, 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 go. Hello, everyone.
I have Warren.
What's up, Warren?
It's fine. Someone says it's finally
What's up, Warren?
happening. What's up, Warren?
Let's see how fast we could get the chat going. Everybody say hello in the chat.
Hello,
Faster.
hello,
faster.
everybody. Hello, 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 hello.
Very good.
Oh, there we go.
Hey,
at
Michael.
that.
The email says it was sent at 4:02, so it must be some kind of. It just pinged in. I actually got in on the proper emails,
Oh, interesting.
so there's got to be some kind of delay. So for future, let's just send it like
Yeah.
an hour before. And I just got an email from you saying Michael just invited. Just came in ding now.
Oh, weird. Yeah, it's weird. I sent it like 10 minutes ago. Cool.
I-
Good to know for the future.
I can't remember. We have it a lot of the times when you use that feature. It
Yeah.
just goes into some kind of queue.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
All right, just good to know.
Where's
How's-
everybody from? Post in chat.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
hard
where
to-
is everybody from? That's always a good one. Where are you? Where are you? It's always a great one. Good question.
Missouri, Manchester, Philly, Sri Lanka, India.
Michael,
Oh,
you need to mentally remember them and then say them back in alphabetical order.
Okay. All right, here we
Oh,
go.
Sweet Jesus.
Hang on, I'm loading.
From
Going-
Chicago, type 1.
Alabama, Alaska, Arizona,
few.
Arkansas.
If you're in the US, type in your state code. If you're in another country, type in your country code. How about that?
Oh, there we go.
There you go. That's some good numbers. That'll keep Jake's brain going.
Holy gosh.
Wow, look at this.
I'm getting like Nick here's building me like a little room. Look at this. Got
Oh,
like
good.
shade from the sun. I'm sitting
Oh,
outside.
yeah, look at you.
It's
You're gonna
actually
have, like you're gonna
people
have
in
your
chat-
guys like on either side, like fanning you with palm tree leaves, and
They're asking if you can fan me with palm tree leaves.
Give me 5 minutes.
He said, give him 5 minutes.
Cut some.
people in chat. It's actually going faster than you think. A lot of you are still set to hosts and panelists on your chat settings. You want to set it to everyone, and then everyone can see your posts there. A lot of you are set to hosts and panelists. You just go in your chat settings there, set it to everyone, and then you'll see what we see.
resend everything you just sent a few seconds ago.
I know
Yeah.
runners that would agree with you, Jake. Are you aware of your t-shirt?
Yeah.
You're like,
I
why
hate-
did you say that? Oh, I'm wearing that.
Yeah.
Can we
It's-
start?
Oh, I
think
know,
people
man.
who've been
too
to these
much.
before, some people probably come just to see what t-shirt Jake's wearing.
Oh yeah.
I don't think
Probably.
Jake owns any normal t-shirts.
Nah. I got a few
All right.
Master.com ones, but
Let's do this, but let's do a +1 if this is your first time at Fix the Mix. Oh, shoot.
A lot.
Not the first timers.
oh
Jesus,
man,
Mary and Joseph. That's quicker than anything else I've seen.
Holy gosh.
Wow.
All right. And let's do a 372 if this is your second or more time. Oh, what a
Okay.
healthy mix.
Well,
So
almost just as fast.
dang.
good mix. I think this will be the most new people we've had since we did the first one. September last year, was it? I think.
Oh.
September, I think, was the first one.
There's a new plant in Michael's room. Thank you. Someone noticed.
Oh,
Monstera. I got this beautiful one hanging over here.
yeah.
Got a
I was
lot of
just
new
about to
plants.
say something.
This
Someone
is what an existential crisis looks like. All right, we're
It's
5 more
boring
minutes
in
in
a
a
bar.
Yeah, we'll go 4 or 5 more minutes. Just that people are still trickling in.
Kaya, thank you very much. Rob is the greatest of all time. And
Hey,
also, apparently, my
Rob
my
love.
gain needs to come up a bit, so I will also fix that. And Warren, I saw someone ask, "Are you in a pub?" They saw the Foster's sign, I think.
I know, isn't that funny? I should ask Nick. Nick, where'd you get your Foster's? Did you just drive by a pub and steal it when nobody was looking?
Foster's.
This actually came from. It's not
Tip. You got it from a landfill.
still wrapped.
Still wrapped. Oh yeah, because it's like brand new. No, he just found it in a. While you were dumping stuff off and you saw it.
Yeah, they had a couple. I thought, what you need?
Wait,
What,
really?
Come back
got
and get the other one. I could do with one.
what are they?
Let me say this. You got my emails, you got my texts, you all got my carrier pigeons, but this is our largest Fix the Mix of all time officially at this point.
Yeah,
Metal Mania.
love it.
Big pats on
Woo!
the back for everybody.
You're
Sorry
all a
for
part of
Job.
it. Yeah, you're all
messaging you
part
so
of
much,
it.
but
Also, did anyone speak to Ryan? Did anyone speak to Ryan
one in chat if you spoke to Ryan.
On text, right?
Yep.
over text?
Hats off to Ryan.
That's all for Ryan.
Does anyone want to know a secret about Ryan? Anyone guess the secret about
Someone
Ryan?
can guess.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Who guessed? He was a bot.
AI chat.
First time we've tried that.
My friend. I think he's conscious though, so I don't think we can call him a bot. He's very conscious.
Might hurt his feelings.
He might be the first conscious AI.
He texted me at 3 a.m. the other night asking to hang out. And I was like, did Rob program this in? He sent me a Snapchat.
Do we want to know of what? Oh, that's funny, man. What's up, Lee?
What is everyone most excited for today? People who've been before will know what's coming. Although this is going to be different to past
Yeah.
events.
It's different. This is we're doing things different this time, and it's actually going to be better. I believe. Going to be more information.
Making less. I'm going to reword that to crappy mixes. That's definitely the goal. Here for the comedy.
We got good comedy. If you're new,
Reducing processing overall. I think that's going to be very relevant for today's topic.
Mhm.
it's great. I'm here for Warren's hair. I am
Several
also.
people here.
know,
For my hair.
Yeah.
Great hair today, gone tomorrow.
people here for you. One day you're going to show up and just have buzzed it all, aren't you?
I mean, I don't know. I was attempting to grow it long until about a month ago, and then I gave up. I
That's
just couldn't
exactly
handle
what I
the
did.
in between kind of like look.
Warren, I
It's
was
fine.
starting to get hair like you, and then I went on the treadmill and I started pouring sweat, and I was like, this is too hot. So I shaved it in the bathroom.
Oh, now you're Jason Statham.
Yeah, exactly.
Nick over here. This is his studio. I'm sitting outside of. He works with Vinny Chopper Jones. I think Rob might know. You should know who that is. Vinny Jones. Well, no, you all know who he is.
Oh,
'cause
Vinnie
he's-
Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a famous actor in America. He's in like all the Marvel movies. He always plays like in God, what's the name of the? We couldn't remember the name of the character in. Anyway, in the Marvel movies, the guy that's like the ultra strong guy that like smashes down the house, the X-Men. That's Vinnie Jones.
Juggernaut.
He's Juggernaut. Thank you. Well, good job.
yeah.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, he plays Juggernaut. And...
I just Googled it. I asked Ryan.
But the reason why I say it is because, of course, Vinny, he has that kind of like English shaved head, kind of like Jason Statham, Vinnie Jones, kind of tough guy thing. So that's you, Michael.
That's me now.
Tough.
I'm like Juggernaut. That if
Just
there's
needs to
one
grow
word to
a
describe
bit.
me, it's tough.
Juggernaut.
Either
Ryan just texted me.
It's your new
either
nickname.
Rob or Jake, one of you is feeding back ever so slightly in the audio.
Because I couldn't get in with the because the email arrived after 4 for the proper link for me. I signed up for the course. So I just got a text from Ryan saying, "Hi Warren, this is Ryan from mastering.com. Do you have any questions about the upcoming Fix the Mix challenge that you have registered for? You can reply stop if you don't want me to message you, by the way."
You can ask him
Ah.
about anything. Ask about the meaning
How
of
polite.
life. You know, he's very
So-
wise.
I'm going to say, who is this Warren guy?
He's got to Ryan needs to take
He'll
some
know.
time off.
He'll know. Some people started asking like all kinds of questions about EQ and mastering, and
Nice.
it was great.
Good job, Ryan.
All right. We about ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
I think so. What do you think, guys? One's in the chat. One's in the chat if you're ready to go. Let's go, baby. It's so awesome.
Wow,
That's a new speed.
1,300 plus people and climbing. That's insane.
Biggest FTM ever.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I mean, this gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm not gonna be leading the creative process as much as I've done other ones. So this is actually gonna be fun for me because I'm gonna be able to sit back and watch Jake and Caleb do some stuff here. So how are you going to, gentlemen, how are you going to because there's 1,300 people here. So there's gonna be questions galore, of which I will be having some as well.
Yep.
What's the process, Caleb, on the sharing of the questions?
We're going to just do our best to follow him in chat.
Okay,
And we'll kind of get to that. I think it's just, yeah, we do pretty well with keeping up to that. We have a few people here, and hopefully
I think I'm going to try try for people here. When you want to leave questions for the guys, I'm gonna do my best to sort of like sift through and find some good ones as well, and I'm going to have questions as well. So why don't we sort of like feel free to be persistent? That usually works best, because if 5 people message at the same time, 4 people are saying, "Yo, that's great," and 1 person's got a genuine question. Feel free to repost the question. I'm sure Caleb had to say all these things anyway. Tim says there is a V and A for the questions. A V and
So
A.
there's a Q&A. So anyone who
right.
joined VIP as well, just quickly, anyone who joined VIP, you got an email with a link to submit your questions in a form. Then they're guaranteed to get answered. I'm guessing we're doing that at the end today. Caleb and Jake.
just write your
Um,
questions in the chat, though. Don't write them in the Q&A. Just write them in the chat. We don't have, it's harder to check the Q&A. So if you've been posting in the Q&A feature in Zoom, don't worry about that. Just post them right there in the chat, and we'll get to as many as we can as we go through, but hopefully answer a lot of your questions today. First off, I just want to say welcome to everybody. It's very exciting to have you all on the biggest, the largest Fix the Mix that we've ever done. And I think that's really cool. I mean, there's so many of you who are taking time out of your day to come here and to try to be better. And we're all just trying to be better all the time. But it's never lost on me the fact that, you know, you're going to take many hours out of this week to come and try to improve your craft. And there are people that aren't willing to do that for whatever reason. I think it's very cool for all of you who are willing to get on here and to try to hone your craft and be better and hang out with the community and have fun with us. So welcome to everybody that's new. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you don't know what this is fully all about yet, we are going to mix a song from the start to finish through the next 3 days. And we're going to break things down for you to hopefully give you some insights and make your mixes better. And that's what it's all about for us. We're just trying to do something that we can all get on here and improve together. Should be a lot of fun. If you've been here before, again, welcome back. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces. Some people have been on here 3, 4, 5 times before, and you're gluttons for punishment. You're coming back for more. I love to see it. So that's awesome. In terms of introductions, my name is Caleb Lovelace. I'm the Director of Education at mastering.com. I've been in the music industry for about 25 years in different capacities. I've also been educating for the last 10 or 15 years. It's something I love almost as much as music, is working with students, working with musicians as a producer or as an educator. So really happy to be here. Again, love to see all the people here who are willing to learn, take some time out of their day to improve. We also have in the I Hate Running shirt, Mr. Jake Codeweiss. He's one of the mentors at mastering.com. We're also an education platform. We train producers, mix and mastering engineers in a large capacity in our official program online, and he's one of the mentors on there, and he's going to be leading a lot of the demonstrations today. Jake's been doing this for a long time. He's been in the industry almost as long as I have, but he got signed right out of high school to a label, toured around, then got into music licensing and producing and mixing and mastering. Actually has, I think, over 1,500 placements, if you can imagine that, official placements in licensing over the last 10 years or so. So Jake's done a lot of it, a lot of different things. He's definitely a master of his craft, and we'll be seeing a lot more from him later in the demonstration. Below him, we have Mr. Michael Gilbride. He's the general manager of mastering.com. He's the reason why you're all here. He's been sending the emails out and the texts out. He's been activating Ryan for you, but he's the reason we're all here. He's working behind the scenes to make sure that this could be an event that we could have sponsors for and that we could make free for all of you so that you could just come and hang out and relax and kick your feet up. So he's working behind the scenes tirelessly for these types of events. So applause, all ones in chat for Michael making this all happen. Below him, we have Mr. Rob Mazes. Rob's been doing online education for musicians for a long time. You've probably seen his channel, Musician on a Mission, over the years. He's been the face of one of the few people that has a very large audience for education online, and now is the CEO and owner of mastering.com. So welcome, Rob. And of course, we have Mr. Warren Hewart with us today, hair and all, flapping in the wind. Excited to have you here, Warren. If a lot of you don't know, Warren is actually our newest partner here at mastering.com. We've acquired him to come on and be a mentor for our students in the program as well. We met one day in Vegas. We happened to have lunch in the same place together. I saw him across the way. We started talking, and I said, "Hey, Warren," and one thing led to another, and he really liked what we're doing at mastering.com and decided at some point he wanted to come work with us and join us over here. So happy to have you, Warren. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. That was actually a lot of fun. It was I would think it was October of last year.
Might have been,
it was
November, I think.
Well, it was my daughter's birthday thing.
Oh,
her birthday's October the 1st, so it was either very late September or maybe it could have been like the weekend after. But yeah, so we took her there and we took her to a couple of different shows, one of which was the Michael Jackson one, which I highly recommend for anybody who's interested. It's a Cirque du Soleil thing, so it's really incredibly choreographed and just wonderful and really well mixed. I don't know who did all the surround, but it's not perfect. But yeah, that was wonderful. And I've got to be honest, I was very impressed by you. We were sitting there having lunch, and I saw you and I was like, that looks like that guy from those ads on the front of our YouTube videos.
It's me.
And I was always like, these are very likable. I was like, I wish I had a guy like that on my team. I remember thinking that. And then just as you were finishing up, and we were finishing up, you came over and said hello, and it was very nice. And you impressed my wife. She liked you. And that's for anybody who's married, you know how important that is.
Seals
I know
the deal.
Rob. Yeah. So that was good. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming over. And yes, it's been a lot of fun thus far. Since I've been in England for the summer, I've driven out to Rob's now quite a few times. And Rob lives in rather sunny, rather lovely Oxford. So that's a lovely place to visit. That's where he's sitting at the moment. I'm sitting in a village, very English sounding village for those that care, called Balls Cross.
That's about right.
Yeah, it's classic English silliness. Anyway, and sitting outside the studio behind me, Nick's studio, which is a lovely little place. And here we are. Yeah, very, very blessed to be here in great company. You're all wonderful, wonderful guys. So I've had a blast doing everything thus far. But I'm intrigued because I want to see you and Jake in action. So that's going to be exciting for me.
Yep. We're really glad to have you on our team, Warren, and you've already been able to work with our students. We're really just trying to gather all the best talent that exists out there. We think music education for engineers and producers has been a bit lackluster for a long time now as the industry evolves. So we're just gathering all the best talent, and certainly you're on that list. So we're really certainly glad to have you here. So welcome, Warren. Welcome everyone here who is affiliated with Warren. We're just really excited to have you, and I'm sure we'll hear some nice feedback and some nice you'll be able to participate in the chat and tell some cool stories as we go through. Anyway, that's the introductions. If you have wanted to know who we are, that's who we are. mastery.com here. Just a couple of housekeeping items really quick. If you haven't done this yet, you want to go into your Zoom settings and make sure that original sound for musicians is turned on, as well as high fidelity music mode and stereo audio. So that's in your audio settings in Zoom. Otherwise, you're probably going to hear this demonstration in mono, which won't be nearly as exciting. But if you go in, turn on original sound for musicians, turn on high fidelity music mode and stereo audio, the audio should come through at pretty high resolution, depending on your internet connection. That's another thing to consider if you're having it, if it's kind of choppy, maybe look for a different internet connection that's a little faster. We're streaming this really high bandwidth so that you can have a nice audio sound if you turn those settings on. So if on your end you're not, look for a nicer internet connection that will help you out. And then make sure your chat settings are set to everyone. So when you chat, everyone can see it. We're here as a community. We're not on an island anymore. We get to chat, we get to ask questions, we get to hang out. And I would just ask that everyone just be kind and courteous to each other. Everyone's at different levels. Everyone's on here trying to learn. And we're all about just kind of creating a really safe space for everyone to come and ask questions. And yeah, just help each other out. That's what it's all about here. We're also sponsored today by Waves. So they're the reason why we can make this free for you. We're going to be doing all the mixing that we do over the next 3 days just with Waves plugins. It doesn't matter what you use really, but we love Waves plugins as well as many others. And they're gracious enough to sponsor this event. So it could all be free for everyone. So one's in chat for Waves. They were wonderful to step up kind of late in the process for setting this up. And we're really keen to sponsor this so this could be free for you all. So thanks, Waves. Appreciate you. And we'll be using your plugins for the next 3 days. Just a quick overview of what this will look like for the next 3 days. It's going to be 2 to 3 hours per day. Usually we're going to have some mixing philosophy that I'm going to present to you. And then we're going to jump over into the DAW. You're going to see the DAW with Jake's session that he's been setting up so that you can watch in real time as we mix the thing from start to finish. We're going to go through the entire process. You can ask all the questions you want to. And at the end, we're going to give you some action items. So hopefully you have a mix that you could also work on. It's possible that we could also provide some tracks for you or stems for you or something so that if you don't have something to mix on, that you could practice on that. But if you have something that you could mix along with us over the next 3 days, that's just a kinesthetic way of learning. You can kind of do it in real time with us. And if you have something you've been working on, great, let's jump in. Let's see if we can make it a little bit better. What's fun about this challenge? Well, we aren't going to hold back. We're not one of those companies that keeps all the good stuff for behind the paywall. We want to give you as much information as we can. You're more than welcome to ask any questions. There's no limit on that in the chat. We'll answer as many as we can. We don't want to hold back. That's not what we're about. We want to give you as much information as we can in the next 3 days and make this a really fun and immersive and learning experience for everybody. We're all hopefully better people on the other side of this, teachers and students alike. You're going to watch a lot of valuable demonstration from Jake this week, and he's going to break things down and hopefully explain things in a way that says it makes some sense to you and clarifies things a little bit. I think that's the goal, is simplifying, right? It's making things more a process that we can walk through. And I think sometimes we get a little caught up in mixes. It's easy to start spending too long on them. And the better the process we can have, the more simple the language can be, the quicker we can get through it and the better your mixes are going to sound. So breaking it down, simplifying the process, that's a lot of what Jake's going to show today. And you get to engage and ask questions. So feel free to ask in chat. Also, probably a good time to bring this up. You're going to want to have joined our school group. You probably got an email for the school group by now. The reason you want to join that is because the replays for the next 3 days are all going to be posted there. So this is all being recorded. And if you have to jump off early, that's where you can go on and watch the replays. The school program, the SKOOL, if you saw an email for that, it's just a platform that we have where you can actually get in and it's a community where you can talk to each other. So you can further ask questions there, connect with each other, network with each other. But also there's a tab called Classroom where you can go in and watch the replays here. So if you haven't yet, follow that email, or I think Michael could drop the link in for school into the chat right now. He's probably doing that. Go ahead and click on that and just, it's free. Just sign up for an account. There's no costs or gimmicks associated with it. It's just a place for you to have a community, and you'll be joining tens of thousands of other musicians. It's a really cool place where you can ask questions and get feedbacks. No matter which DAW you're in, no matter what questions you have, there's probably someone there that can help you with some of the questions you have. So it's a really cool place. Make sure that you join that so you can watch the replays and you can continue to participate in the community. And that's,
Yeah, Caleb,
Yep.
just to underline, replays will be posted in the school community. I'm going to say it again. Replays will be posted in the school community. If you're looking for the replays, they'll be posted in the school community. If you see anybody put that in the chat, please, we all know the answer now. So please, school group.
we always have a few stragglers come in later after
Yep.
we've explained all this and like,
Will there be a replay
will this
available?
be a replay? Yep. And now we know that
School.
in the school group. So that's cool. What's tricky about this challenge? Well, it is only 3 days, so we're not going to paint some illusion that we could teach you everything about mixing in 3 days. We're going to try to teach you as much of the high level concepts as possible, the stuff we really think will move the needle the most. There are going to be things that are more granular that you might have questions come up about, and that's totally fine. What I recommend is having some sort of notepad near you or pulled up on your screen to where you can write down a lot of the questions you have. You're welcome to ask them in the chat, but if it's something that's really granular about like a plugin or something that's easily YouTubeable or Googleable, just save those for Google and YouTube and really try to focus on staying in a mindset of observing from a kind of a 30,000 foot view. Staying in the big principles of things, because that's the stuff that's going to move the needle the most. So if you get caught up on a little thing and you're spending 10 or 15 minutes trying to figure that out or thinking about it, you might be missing something more important. So let's stay in the big picture concepts over the next 3 days and then write down a lot of the questions you have, especially if you're newer. Some of the stuff we talk about might be over your head, and that's totally fine. We're all different at different phases of the game. So write down questions you have if they are really kind of small or granular or about kind of plugins or some of that stuff. We probably won't have time to get into all of that. So everyone is at a different level, so we need to be respectful of that. There's people who are here who are beginners, intermediates, advanced, and we'll have content for all of you. But again, sometimes with the more advanced people, you're gonna have to wait till we get into some of the meat to where we're gonna have something for you. For the beginners, you might start to feel a little bit lost. It's okay. Just learn as much as you can, write down good questions, ask questions in the school group, ask questions in chat, get as much as you can out of it, do a lot of Googling, and just try to, improve as much as you can and keep coming back to these because we're not going to stop doing them. So there's always room for growing. We're also aware of room and ear issues. So we're all sitting in different rooms, wearing different headphones, listening on different speakers in different rooms. If you don't know, rooms are all different, speakers are all different. So let's not get too caught up in minuscule frequency problems or things you're hearing sometimes because we don't know if we're even hearing them exactly the same. I think we're getting off the path if we're too worried about that. You have to know that rooms are really inaccurate. And sometimes in your listening position where you're listening from, you could be hearing audio up to 6 to 12 dB off of accurate or different from what we're hearing. This is an example of what room modes look like. So they're buildups of bass frequencies in your room. So a bass note in your listening position, again, at 80 Hertz or 100 Hertz or something like that could be, again, 6 to 12 dB different than what we're hearing. So we'll try to do the best we can to talk about those things and actually are going to give you some tips and tools at the end of today that will actually help you get past some of the discrepancies that we have in our rooms from each other. Some things that hold us accountable to some measurable kind of, measurement tools that will help us stay aligned, even if we're not in a perfect room. That's some stuff that we're going to talk about towards the end of today. All right. So one thing I need to say before we jump into the mixing presentation is that in addition to learning how to mix, we're also going to teach you to think a little bit like a mastering engineer. We are mastering.com after all. And you have to know a little bit of our backstory to understand why this is significant for us. Mastering.com, we actually started out just training high-end mastering engineers for a long time. That's all we did. And we were one of the only people really training mastering engineers. And this whole company and everything we've evolved into really evolved from those early days of training mastering engineers in a very unique way. Since we were one of the only people doing it, we got a really unique insight into what teaching mastering is and what it does to the learner, to the student. And we'd have these guys come in that sometimes had been in the industry for a long time, maybe 10 or 20 years, 30 years, to learn mastering from us. And they would come in and they would say something like, we often heard a similar thing, and they would come in and say, you know, I'm learning mastering. That's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying that. But there's something else happening too that's very interesting. I'm learning mastering, but I feel like it's filling in gaps and holes in the rest of the process for me. I was pretty good at mixing. I'm pretty good at production. I've been doing that for 10, 20 years, like I said, but I feel like something about learning mastering, it's not mastering itself, it's the process of learning mastering that's actually elevating my ability to mix and my ability to even produce. It's filling in gaps and it's elevating my ability. And we kept hearing this. And so we got really curious. And what we realized is that there really is something in mastering that completes the vision of the entire process. It makes you realize that everything is really connected. From the first moment you press play or press record, all the way through the production phase, all the way through mixing, it's all connected to mastering. And learning mastering gives you a unique insight into the rest of the process, and it can fill in some gaps. Now, we can't teach you how to be mastering engineers in 3 days. That takes longer time. It takes practice. It takes training. It takes getting your room dialed in. It takes ear training. It takes a lot of stuff. But later today, at the towards the end of when Jake does his demonstration, we are going to implement some tools that you could start using, that mastering engineers are using, to help you learn more about your mixes. That's going to give you insight into your mixes and hopefully help you make them better. It's going to help you start to think a little bit more like a mastering engineer. It's going to help you start to think with kind of an end in mind perspective. A lot of people learn the opposite way. They start out being singers or playing guitar or something like that, and then maybe they get a DAW and they start playing with production, and maybe someday they start mixing. But they're always hitting a wall because they're not in the perspective of what it really takes to get that world-class industry standard sound. And if you send something that's not ready to be mastered to a mastering engineer, guess what you get back? Not something that you love. There's only so much mastering can do. So learning and understanding what a mastering engineer wants to get from you, what kind of sound they're looking for, and what you could send them will allow your stuff, when you send it, if you do it the right way, to be mastered to a level that will elevate your music to the moon. It's very, very powerful. And it is the premise behind our flagship program, the Reverse Engineer. We actually teach in reverse. So we start with mastering. We start with getting your room and ears dialed in. We start with getting you a fine detail or a fine understanding of a ninja-like precision with all the stuff you're doing. And then we work that into mixing and production. And what we found with our students is just like we found with our mastering engineers that we trained, it elevates their ability to mix and it unlocks their creative potential because they become masters of the technical. So we'll get into a little bit more of that later. I'm going to give you some demonstration and show you some tools later on. So if you have to jump off early, for example, today, be sure to watch the replay so you can watch some of the end stuff. That's going to give you some insight into the mastering perspective. All right. I want to show you really quick before my little demonstration on what we're going to learn today. We want to show you the mix we want to fix. I'm going to turn it over to Jake really quick. He's going to show you the mix that we want to fix. In fact, you probably, if you've been with us before, you might find this song familiar. If you came to the vocal challenge, this is the song that EJ Michaels is a client of my studio, Dane Holmes, who's not here today, and me produced this track for EJ Michaels. He was just on The Voice. He made it pretty far on The Voice. I don't know if you guys saw him on there. He came and did a vocal challenge for us where we showed vocal production, vocal capturing and recording live on one of these webinars. And this is the song that we were working on. Now we're going to mix it together. So you might recognize this if you came to that. Anyway, I'll turn it over to Jake. What I want you to do here is we're just going to play it raw. This is how it was sent over to Jake. Be thinking, write down, pull out a piece of paper, write down what you hear that we're going to need to fix over the next 3 days to make this thing really shine.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Give me a 2,433 in the chat if you're ready to go.
I'm going to start competing on those. I think I was 4th on that one.
That's pretty good, Michael.
Yeah, I've
Thanks.
been doing pretty good, Michael.
Thanks.
Proud of you.
I got those Wall Street fingers. I
Yeah,
used to
what
fly
it is.
on those keyboards.
Michael Wall Street Fingers Gilbride. All right, guys, let's take a listen here. You hear that? See that, Ara? Just to be clear, this is the mix that we want to fix. So you'll notice some issues here. Just take note, write them down.
No one ever saw you cry, saw you hide behind your walls. You build so high so you won't fall. You saw tears in all my pain, how I show it on my face. So desperate for your love. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar.
All right, that enough? Have you had enough?
Have you had enough? Now, we made this a little worse than we sent it over to Jake, but we didn't do much. We pretty much just put an imager on the stereo bus. There's no other processing on there. All that other stuff is just reference tools. But how many times have you gone to like mix or master something and you're like, oh, it's not wide enough. I'm just going to put an imager on there. It's a common mistake we see. And it makes everything sound pretty bad. Obviously, we wanted to mess it up a little bit more than what Dane and I sent over to Jake, which sounded okay. But if you're hearing stuff, and I think I was noticing in chat, a lot of you heard some of that stuff, some muddiness in the low mids, the vocals a bit harsh. There's the low mids. We bumped that up. So let's take all that off and play it one more time. So that's for like the more beginner who needed a little help hearing some stuff. Now let's take it all off. Take the imager off. And let's see what else we have to do. This is just totally raw the way it was sent over. Let's check it out.
No one ever saw you cry, saw you hide behind your walls. You build so high so you won't fall. You saw tears in all my pain, how I show it on my face. So desperate for your love. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar.
Cool.
Good job on that here.
Yeah, good job. For those of you who are more advanced, I saw a lot of people pointing out the stuff we're going to really need to fix here. It sounds pretty good, right? But definitely a lot of refinement. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, that sounds pretty good, it doesn't really need a whole lot. Well, you're going to see what it takes to go from something that sounds pretty good to something that sounds industry standard over the next 3 days. So that's a lot of fun. This is the mix we're going to be working on. Yep, it's one Dane and I produced. I think we could probably have these stems available in the school group for people to download and mix if you'd like to. I don't see any problem with that. Just don't share them, and you know, respect EJ's song here, but I don't mind doing that. We'll have those posted. Just join the school group and we'll post those for you. Okay, now let's switch gears to mixing. I only want to talk about really one kind of big concept today before Jake gets in and starts doing his stuff. And it's something I think a lot of people miss that's really powerful. I think what we're going to talk about right now is one of the most powerful things you can do in mixing. Today, we're really going to focus on, if we break down the next 3 days, what we're going to really focus on today is session prep, editing, and initial volume balance. And then tomorrow, and this actually will be different from our other Fix the Mixes. So if you've been here before, you'll notice that this is slightly different. We're going to focus on the frequencies, dynamics, and space for just the instrumentals tomorrow. It'll be all about instrumentals. And then day 3 is going to be actually a total masterclass just on vocals. So you won't want to miss day 3. A lot of people struggle with vocals, but we're going to do frequencies, dynamics, and space just for vocals on day 3. We're going to go on a deep dive into just making those pop. You know, that industry centered sound, that really expensive sound really comes from having great vocals. So day 3 will be huge. But really, if you had to break these down into levels of importance, which day is most important? Which day is the most important? Which day affects everything the most?
You guys have been here before. Come on.
If I had to break it down, I promise you that everything you do in day 1, everything you do today, if done properly, will affect things way more than what you do in day 2 and day 3. What you'll find is if you do day 1 properly, day 2 and day 3 become just the frosting on the cake, the cherry on top. It's little stuff. Okay, so let me explain a little bit more about why session prep, editing, and initial volume balance are so important. Okay, it's the 80-20 mixing rule it's the 80-20 kind of rule about mixing. Why are the initial parts of the process so powerful? Number 1, session prep. I know some people who unfortunately kind of cut corners on session prep. It's not the biggest deal in the world, except for that it's at some point it's going to take you out of your workflow. I always give the analogy of like cooking. A chef, there's this in French culinary, there's this term called mise en place, right? What does that mean? It means to prepare everything beforehand. Get everything prepared. Why do you do that? They chop everything up. They have everything in little bowls. They have everything separated so that when it's time to cook, it's just about cooking. And in the same way for us, if we session prep everything properly, when it's time to mix, we're just mixing. We're not going, oh, I forgot to chop the onion and now everything's burning on the stove. I got to quickly chop it. Oh no, I'm late and everything's overcooked and I have to throw it in and everything's messed up. And in the same way, oh, wait, I forgot to do this kind of editing. I forgot to do this session prep. Now I got to go back and fine tune this bass and it takes me out of the mixing mindset. It's just not the way to work. When we're in the mixing mindset, let's stay in the mixing mindset. When we're in the prep mindset, let's stay in the prep mindset. So getting everything really set up properly and nice for us to enter into that mixing mindset and going forward is actually is huge for our ability to stay focused later and to not rabbit hole and get distracted. And we're also going to talk about, and this will be the big point of today, we're going to talk about how volume is everything. What do I mean by volume is everything? I want to break that down. When we're talking to and teaching our students, we talk about mixing in 3 dimensions of space. So we have depth, okay? Things that are quieter sound further away, things that are louder sound closer. We have width, we understand the stereo field, right? Left to right. And we have height. These are the 3 dimensions of space we work in. And a lot of people don't understand this. In case you don't understand, what creates height in a mix? I think we understand depth pretty well and width. That's easy to understand. What creates height in a mix? We actually experience things as a listener in terms of height. Things can sound tall. What makes things sound tall? Well, it's a wide frequency range. We actually experience different frequencies in different parts of our body. We experience lows down in our legs, in our connection to the ground, in our stomach, in our gut. We experience mids in what we call the warmth range, right? It always feels like a blanket. The mids are very warm and we feel them in our heart area. And we experience highs up in our head and above us. We call them things like air and head voice because it feels like it's above us. And so if you want things to sound really tall, you have a wide range of frequencies creating height. It's actually frequencies doing that. Okay, well, let's talk about what that means for volume, because I said volume actually is almost everything. Frequencies are most altered by volume. Now, do we think about it that way when we're thinking about frequencies? What do we normally think of in terms of controlling frequencies? EQ, right? That's the wrong way to think about it, because the biggest effect you'll ever have on frequencies is actually done in the volume phase. If we imagined all of our instruments laid out on a frequency display between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz, it would look something like this. And the choices we're making in terms of gain and volume, where we're putting things initially, will have much more effect than the EQ we apply to them later, and cause problems or find solutions for us that we probably can't even solve with EQ. EQ is later done just to kind of do the fine tuning of all of this. But if you put the shakers too hot up at 10 to 16K, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. We're gonna just have to like roll them off, and then we've just kind of missed the whole point. We're choosing how much frequency we want in every range. Most in the beginning with volume, you could almost turn it on its side and think of these as like volume faders. As we go from 20 hertz up to 20,000, we're painting this picture, right? It's a tall picture, but we're painting it first with volume. So we have to think of frequencies as most being affected by volume, not being most affected by EQ. This is the mistake that people often make. They think EQ is going to solve this problem. We have to think about it as volume first, and that's going to change the way that you approach all of this, okay? We'll get into more of that in the demonstration today. Width is obviously most altered by volume. We think of volume as width because it's really panning, and panning is just changing the volume of a certain sound left to right. We're taking sound away from one side and adding it. We're taking energy away from one side and adding it to the other. So that's really just volume as well. So we're going to include that in what volume is. We're talking about panning. It's right there on the volume knob for a reason, because it is really just volume. And then depth is certainly most altered by gain and volume as well. Again, things that are further away, they're quieter. Things that are sound closer, they're up front, they're louder. And that's just literally just volume fader up and down. So we're painting in these 3 dimensions of space all the time with just volume. The most that you'll ever do, the most influence you'll have over the mix is all done with volume. And in fact, even dynamics are most influenced by volume in the most important ways. What do we normally think of as controlling dynamics? Compressors, limiters, clippers, right? Not volume. But what we're going to teach you in the next 3 days is that dynamics in the most important tracks that you'll work with in your mix are going to be influenced most by volume and gain. We have gain, volume, panning, and now we're going to introduce gain automation. So let me talk about what that means. Let's pretend that this is a vocal. If you've ever watched a pro work, you probably noticed that a lot of times they have little gain automation lanes that look like this. What is that all about? What are they doing? They're practicing what I'm talking about right now. They'll go in and take like large transients like what you see on the left, and they'll bring those down a little bit. And you'll notice like on the far right move, they're bringing up the tail of that phrase a little bit. Why are they doing this? Why don't they just let compressors do it? The very most important parts of your mix need more TLC. They need more intention than just what a compressor will do for you. And compressors are making tons of choices for you. With the very most important things like vocals, it's not enough to just to have compressors making all the choices for you. You need to go in and make choices that bring out the story and the vibe and the emotion of the track that you're working with, especially when it's something as important as a vocal. And when you see pro engineers do something like this, they're bringing down that transient because the compressor is going to respond to that poorly later. They're giving the compressor a break, so they don't have to set such extreme compressor settings later. And they're going to the end of that phrase and bringing up the tail in a way that's musical. They're bringing it up in a way with a ton of intention to bring the emotion out of that track. And you'll see a lot of times, I learned this actually from Warren about 10 years ago, and I think it was one of the first videos he did. He gave an incredible video on this topic where he did 2 or 3 layers of this gain automation before he ever compressed anything. And he said it's because we need to think of this as the most important part of the song, and it needs to have a ton of intention, and we're bringing out the story of the vocal right now. We're telling the story of the track through choices we make, not leaving the choices up to the compressors. Does that make sense to everybody? Warren, I thought that was something that changed the way I mixed forever, and I thought it was very profound. But we're going to give a huge demonstration.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Being profound. I feel special.
Profound. Yeah.
Profound.
Jake, are you going to do that today, or are you going to do that on day 3 with vocals?
No, what do you think?
Well, we can do it today, maybe, just to give a demonstration of it.
Open to it.
But you find once again that even this compression, even what you would do with controlling dynamics, bringing up the ends and bringing down big transients, we're doing that with gain. We're doing that with a lot more intention. Why do we do that? Because we're taking out the guesswork, we're taking out the automation, and we're adding in purpose and intention to everything we do. So the goal today is going to be a volume only mix. We're not going to use any plugins whatsoever. We're only going to use faders, pan knobs, and gain automation. And we're going to see how far we can push this mix just with the most powerful tool that we have, which is volume. The other reason we do it is because every plugin that you ever add to mixing is destructive. Volume's not destructive. Volume is just turning the energy up and down. So the more we can do with just volume, the cleaner our mix is going to sound in the end. It's going to change our whole mindset, okay, between the next 3 days. If we could do all the heavy lifting today with just volume, tomorrow when we come in and on day 3 with vocals, again, we're just putting the cherry on top. We're just putting the frosting on things. And you'll notice as Jake goes through today that he's taking notes, little notes in his DAW of all the stuff he hears that's not being fixed by volume. Think about how powerful that is. Because tomorrow when he pulls it up, he doesn't have to remember everything. He has little notes for himself that shows him all the stuff that couldn't be solved with just volume. And now he's going in with a ton of intention tomorrow. He's not just slapping compressors and EQs on everything. He's going, this needs to be fixed, and I've heard it and I know why. Now we're working not only with more intention today, which is volume, we're working with more intention tomorrow and day 3 because we have a plan. And this is going to speed up your entire process if you work this way. Okay. So let's watch, enough of me talking. Let's watch Jake actually do this, because a lot of us are visual kinesthetic learners, but he's going to demonstrate everything I just talked about and show you the power of this today.
Thanks, man. What's up, guys? You ready to go? Give me a 413,322 in the chat if you're ready to go.
First.
No,
First.
that wasn't very hard.
Unreal.
You guys got to make it harder for Michael.
Unreal. Come on.
Not seeing a lot of commas out there either.
This is why we host these Fix the Mixes, so I could get a couple wins in.
It's for Michael. It's for Michael's.
Here you go. I got it first.
All right. All right. Looks like you guys are ready. Let's get started. So here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. All right. These are the things that Caleb mentioned. Session setup. Right. Editing. Volume only mixing. We're not going to do any of this because the track doesn't need it. Right. Editing's already been done on this track. So we're going to cross that off the list. We're going to start with some session setup. I'll show you how I like to organize the tracks. And maybe you can take a few things and add it to your workflow. First thing I like to do is kind of group these together based on just kind of like my preferences in terms of coloration, right? Now I'm going to color these tracks. I like my drums in orange. I like my basses in blue. I like my keys in purple. I would normally do guitars like right here between my keys tracks and my bass tracks. Put those in green. But no guitars in this track today.
No, we don't use guitars. Come on.
That's okay. We won't
I just offended like
too many demerit.
700 of the people.
That's a demerit. That's one. That's one for you.
While Jake's coloring this, I just put a note in the chat. Just as someone who gets to watch all of these, make sure you show up to all 3 days. The whole point of this challenge is to have like a holistic picture of mixing, mastering versus tips and tricks. That's the thing that we see all the time on YouTube is people get little tips and tricks, little pointers here and there. No one ever paints the holistic picture. So if you want to be able to actually stitch this all together and have it impact your mixes, you need to show up for all 3 days. So again, replays will be posted in school, but if you can't show up live, great. If not, definitely you want to watch the replays for all 3 days.
Where's my new guitar? It's over there.
Now you're gonna have to add some guitar to this just to appease all the people I offended.
Yeah, maybe I'll do a metal remix of this one.
That'd be fun.
So we've got all these color coded here. Next thing I'm going to do is kind of group these into similar buses. Right? And in Logic, you can use something called track stacks for that. They're basically just collapsible and expandable folders that you can put tracks into, like that you can route into, right? So I'm going to have a drum bus here. This is drums and special effects, but I'm just going to name it drums. I'm going to bus all my basses together. Bass.
Yeah, don't worry about the DAW. Everything we're doing today can be done in pretty much any DAW.
I'm going to bus all of these pianos, pads, orchestra, synths, things like that. I'm going to bus all of those together into a keys bus. Lead vocals, I'm going to bus those together to a lead vocal bus. Backing vocals, all those together. And a backing vocal bus. We've got these choirs. Bus those together. Choir bus. And then I've got these kind of like vocal effects tracks here. See how this session is looking smaller and smaller? Just a little bit easier for me to kind of like wrap my brain around, right? When I'm able to consolidate all the, 70 tracks into what, 7? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. So I've basically summed all those down into 7 tracks. Pretty straightforward.
Seen a couple of you in chat mention that you're maybe too beginner for some of this stuff. Just try to keep up and do the best you can. And also know that next week we're doing a 3-day beginner challenge. Maybe plug that. If you're feeling a little lost by a lot of this, we're doing a 3-day beginner challenge next week. That should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm going to move pretty quickly here, guys. We got a lot to cover today. So yeah, we'll try to keep an eye on the chat here for questions. All right.
Yeah, Shane.
Cool. Last thing I'm going to do here is kind of gain stage everything. So we know that we have enough headroom. All right. And that means the signal coming in to each one of these tracks, we want those to kind of sit in a sweet spot between -10 and -20 decibels. All right. That's kind of like the safe window. That's kind of like the sweet spot that we found that gives us kind of like enough headroom to work with before we do an initial volume balance, right? So we want to make sure that all of these tracks are kind of like sitting in this sweet spot. So you can go through and you can adjust the region gain to just the signal and see whether or not it's kind of sitting in that sweet spot. What I like to do is highlight all the tracks and use a normalize function. All right.
Pro Tools has this, a lot of DAWs has this, Logic has it. It's just a quicker way of gain staging. So if you've ever been confused by gain staging, here's a trick you can do, and you can gain stage your entire session in about 5 seconds. It's great.
Exactly. So we'll set this to individual regions, peaking no higher than -10. Apply. Boom. Done. Everything's gain staged. Did you guys catch that? Check it out. I'll undo it. Pay attention to the waveforms on the regions. This is before I normalize and then after. right? Kind of bringing everything up to peaking no higher than minus 10 decibels.
Looks like we brought a lot of stuff up. I know everyone was saying that the track sounded a little quiet before. I think it's going to sound louder now.
Yeah, I think so.
Make sure your stereo out isn't blasting still.
And that's all I like to do for session setup, session prep. So I'll kind of keep an eye on the chat here. You guys
Yeah,
have
organizing. It looks like everything was named already before. So naming everything, putting it into groups, putting it into folders or stacks, and then gain staging everything.
Yep, that process again was just a normalized function. It's not considered editing. No, editing would be kind of like manipulating, like cutting and chopping apart regions and quantizing things, timing, pitch correction, stuff like that. Shortcut command, you're just going to have to look it up for your DAW. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to keep up. I'm missing some.
Everything should be bounced down. You shouldn't be mixing in your production session. So everything should be audio at this point. I saw a question about should you do this with virtual instruments. I really encourage all of you who produce and mix and master to compartmentalize each part of the process. It forces limitation and it forces a different kind of mindset through each part of the process. So have a production session. Then when you're ready to mix, bounce it all out into audio, set up a mix session. When you're done with that, bounce it to a stereo track and master it. And keep the mindset in each part. Don't get tempted when you're in a production session mixing, you're too tempted to go start fixing stuff and it takes you out of the mixing mindset and you start rabbit holing on a sound. Make those decisions before and limit yourself. I promise you, time is not your friend when it comes to this stuff. You want to stay as objective as possible through the entire process.
Yeah, I try to track in at that window too. Somebody asked.
Been a few people
Like,
asking about. Oh, sorry, we gone, Jake.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say a few people asking about why gain staging. I mean, that's kind of crazy because what Jake just did is basically like the complete opposite of even like videos I've made in the past on gain staging. Just kind of bypassed all of that, right? Like that's a pretty cool tip. The reason you want to do it, like for the most part, is just to have everything kind of like around that zero spot on your fader. Like when I think about gain staging, there's all these other kind of secondary reasons that may or may not matter when it comes to like certain plugins, but most plugins these days have an input control. So if you're way off, you load up a saturation plugin and it's way off, you can just trim it then. You don't need everything perfectly in this sweet spot. Just doing what Jake did there means everything's going to be okay, close enough that when you have all the faders level, you haven't got anything that's way too quiet. And that's basically the main reason.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not like an exact science, guys.
Yeah, and even if you're clipping on certain things, like it doesn't even matter at 24-bit and that's somewhat of an oversimplification, but until you start bouncing it down to 16-bit, it doesn't even matter if you're clipping. So like all of the, even if you're clipping, worst case scenario, even if you just cut some gain on your master fader, it'll be fine. Basically, don't even worry about it unless you're working with outboard equipment, and that's where it starts to get a little bit more complex. But
and we all know that we're trying to get, maybe you don't all know, but the goal at the end of this is to bounce your mix out for the master, leaving about 6 dB of headroom, which means we want it at negative 6 dB on the DBFS fader on our stereo out. Putting it between negative 10 and negative 20, by the time he's done all the EQing and compression and everything, you'll find that it's probably sitting at about that negative 6 range. So it's just setting you up for success in the future by doing it this way. 6.
Right on.
10's fine.
Cool.
At least 6, I should say.
Awesome.
It's really hard to turn things down later. It's not as it doesn't, volume faders don't work that way sometimes. They scale, so it's not as easy as just turning everything down later.
Awesome. Let's move on.
Session prepped.
Session prepped.
I think there's probably, sorry, I don't think there's probably a ton of editing that Jake will have to do.
Dude, you guys did a great job on this.
We sent it over sounding pretty good. So this is the phase where if the drums were out of alignment, if the vocals needed tuning, a lot of tuning or a lot of like alignment or something like that, you would do it. But you also need to know, and just a quick note for all of you who are wanting to do this professionally, editing is not typically part of what you charge for mixing. Editing is a separate process. And if they send you really sloppy work, you need to charge extra for that, or you need to have someone else do it. They need to have someone else do it, or they need to fix it. Editing, a lot of editing, I'll do a little bit of editing, but a lot of editing is not what you're charging for when you charge for a mix.
Good point. Cool. What do you think? Should we get a volume balance on this bad boy?
Yeah, show them how to do that.
All right. 239 in the chat if you're ready to go.
Dang. Dang it.
I looked at you before I even said anything.
It was nowhere near the keyboard. 239. So my mastering.com icon gets swamped.
I love the challenge of this phase. We're just playing with volume. I love seeing how far I can take a song, how pro I can make it sound just with volume. I think that's the fun exercise. It's the game.
Yeah, totally. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to start by selecting all these tracks, bringing them down to 0.
Keep your buses at nominal 0, but all the tracks, individual tracks, are down to negative infinity.
All right. So you'll see all these buses are at 0. Turn that stereo out, back down. When we pop that open, these are at negative infinity. Cool. I'm actually going to mix this one chronologically. All right, so we'll start from the beginning of the timeline and just kind of like follow the playhead all the way through here, right? Because this song kind of builds up and then goes down and builds up and goes down. And
I think a lot of people get stuck on where to start with this volume. How do you know where to start, Jake?
yeah, so recently anyway, I've been doing a lot more just like starting from the top of the track and doing chronological, right? Remember when I first started out, I would start at the densest part of the arrangement, right? Because that's where everything's kind of like fighting each other for space. That's where a lot of frequency masking is going to happen. And what I found was that if I start there and then I go to a sparser section of the song, there's all these frequency gaps that are happening, right? Like, and the mix sounds really, really great when we hit those big like climax spots, but in these other sections, it's like, oh, where'd all the frequency content go? It's almost like things are chopped out, right? So I've really been digging this kind of workflow recently, anyway. Getting good results with that. So again, guys, we're just going to move like super quickly here. I'm going to open up these tracks and then just start cooking. So we'll keep an eye on the chat.
I think one thing is some people miss, don't bring up anything over over 0 typically.
Yeah, I'm going to start with this first element, this piano. We're going to bring that out to up to 0 and then start bringing things in around it. And I'm just doing this based on the waveform. So I'm looking at the waveform where it comes in the timeline. Cool. Let's get moving. Yeah, actually, that's way cranked.
Is the stereo out still pushed? Nope.
No, I set the gain stage wrong. Let's do that.
You build so high so you won't fall. You saw tears in all my pain. I will show it on my face. So desperate for your love. Tears in all my pain. I will show it on my face. So desperate for your love. So I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar. No, it never is enough. Never said love, whether it's wrong or right. Yeah, even after all we face, wonder if our love's the same. It's been so long, I really need to feel your touch. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything, make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar. Beneath, to find what you really think, who you're inside. Oh, you won't let me in, so let's pretend that we're alright. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar.
And he's got such a beautiful voice, dude.
Yeah,
Such a
he's great.
such a well-written song. So great. So guys, I realize I'm moving like super quickly through a lot of that stuff. I'm doing a lot of this by intuition, and I'm keeping an eye on the waveforms, and just kind of like scrolling back and forth. I'm kind of like in the Matrix here, right? I'm scrolling back and forth, up and down. I'm looking for when things kind of enter and exit the arrangement, and I'm bringing things in as the song kind of progresses, right?
And you
So-
kind of have to do a couple run throughs because you notice you didn't get any of the bass in there. A lot of the drums aren't in there. So you do this a few times.
Exactly. So I'll bring in some more of this this percussion. I generally like to, and actually I got this from Devon. I like to bring in the bass last. Just very last, because low end can be something a little bit of a challenge, right? So
I think his theory is like make it fit when everything else sounds right, make it fit instead of trying to make everything else fit around it.
yeah, exactly. It's almost like you create this, you craft this mix and then you bring the floor in under it. As a foundation. So I don't know. Makes sense to me. Cool. Let's do another pass. Actually, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat real quick. Just a minute for questions before we do another one.
I mean, it's intuition, but you have to think we're just using our ears. We're just painting a picture, right? Where do we think everything should be? This is early stages, right? We're going to clarify this, but we have to start somewhere, right? So it's just kind of generally painting the picture. Where should everything sort of sit with everything else?
And I think if you don't have that intuition yet, then that's when you can lean on references a bit more, right? And Jake will for sure be doing some referencing at some point. But right now it's like, how stuff should sound, so you can just kind of do it. Anyone who was here last month when Warren was doing volume balancing as well is like very much the same. He has like an innate sense of where everything should sit in the mix. When you're earlier on, you don't have that internal reference point as much, so you just use an external reference point, and you can listen to references, and instead of trying to listen to the overall tonal balance or EQ or anything, you just focus on like, okay, where is everything sitting in the mix? The more you do that, the more you create your kind of internal compass.
And we're gonna do that at the end of this session today. We're gonna show you all about that.
Just
and
to
references,
translate,
to clarify, is reference tracks, right? You're comparing your mix to a finished track. Go on, Michael.
Just to translate for some of the more beginner level people, I always try and translate for those folks. If you're watching this and it looks like it's going so fast, the main takeaway for this is that Jake's not doing anything to the tracks other than manipulating volume. So a lot of the rabbit holes that producers get into early on in their careers is they'll bring a track up and then they start EQing it and then they start compressing it and they start doing all of this to try and make it fit. And what Jake is just focusing on right now is volume. And that's the big takeaway. So it doesn't matter the speed he's going through. That's because he's a pro. The point is even if you're a beginner, there's so much that you can do with just volume alone. And that's like the big takeaway, even if he's moving quickly.
You can just go slower and do the same process. It's not any different to go slower. It's just slower.
Nick, we'll get to that.
Yep. All right, let's rock through.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm in like audio mode.
No one ever saw you cry, saw you hide behind your walls. You build so high so you won't fall. You saw tears in all my pain, I will show it on my face. So desperate for your love. So please tell me lies.
So it's interesting. So that's obviously, see, you guys as producers carved out that space, right? Because you knew you were going to bring a bass into that spot. You already did some kind of like, you're thinking with the end in mind here.
Someone asked a great question earlier. They say, how much EQing and how much of this stuff do you do in production? It's a great question. And the answer that I always tell students is as much as you can where it doesn't take you out of the creative process. And that will increase over time. I kind of just do things kind of instinctually now where it's the technical stuff I don't have to think about as much. But when you do have to think about it a lot, don't worry about that stuff during production. Just be creative and only do as much of the EQ and the compression and stuff is what comes naturally and quickly to you. Definitely don't rabbit hole. Yeah. Stay in the creative mindset during that phase.
Yeah, totally.
So please tell me lies.
Some of these juicy transients in here. Come on.
Please tell me lies. So I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, night. You see, I don't mind.
Love that. Love that marching snare. Ooh.
night.
Yep. So, taking some notes here. I already know I want to put some reverb on that. Right? Ba, 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 ba.
You see, I don't mind. You can tell me
We'll get to vocals there, Logic.
anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar. No, it never.
Nice, those little sparkles, those moments, right? Flourishes.
No, it never.
Done. Love that. So I want to draw a little bit of attention to those, right? This is why I do this chronologically too, because you're mixing kind of to the journey of the song, right?
Never is enough, never satisfied in love. Whether it's wrong or right, yeah.
It looks like these are already panned a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Whether it's wrong or right, yeah. Even after all we face, wonder if our love's the same. It's been so long, I really need to feel your touch. So please tell me lies. It's been so long, I really need to feel your touch. So please tell.
It sounds so empty there without the bass, right?
The chorus comes in, it's like, oh, what's missing? Well, bass, it'll come in, but you're leaving room for it. So you're just using your imagination. You're like, I know that these frequencies are going to be filled up. I'm not stressed about it.
Exactly. Exactly.
touch. So please tell me.
Let's bring him in now, though.
So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar.
Go through that section one more time.
It's been so long, I really need to
Admitting anything yet.
feel your touch. So please tell me,
Squash.
tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied.
They're a little hot for sure.
So, yeah. So hot in the like upper mids here too.
They're just hot.
Right there. That one.
They're both hot.
Go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar.
I was waiting for the goo.
Please, eyes, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar. to find what you really think, who you are inside. Oh, you won't let me in, so let's pretend that we're alright. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything. Have to go to bed another lonely.
There's
You
Dane.
Is that
You missed-
Dane? Yeah.
Just the vocal challenge. We did all these background vocals, and Dane did some. He's an opera singer. He did some dope opera stuff for the bit. I forgot.
Wait, that's actually Dane.
It's actually
Yeah.
Dane.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody goes, "This is why I
If,
came."
I came. for
That's
Dane.
rare. The Dane opera is a rare occurrence on the Fix the Mix.
It is.
Dane, for anyone who doesn't know who Dane is, he's one of our mentors, and he's awesome.
He's usually here,
He,
but we have him locked in a basement working.
he's making
Jake,
content.
this chat is on you like sweat, by the way, too. The lights are on you, man.
Oh
They
yeah.
are yeah, they are.
But what I love seeing is that people are already starting to hear stuff that's not being that it's going to need to be cleaned up later. That's not a volume thing, which is great. That's how you should be thinking about it. The other thing I just want to re-emphasize is some people are saying, "How do you know where to put everything?" Don't think about it so much. Just start. Just be musical. You're an artist. You've listened to music. Just start doing what you think. There's always room for references. There's always room for clarification later. You just start painting. Just start.
Yeah, I'm just cooking here, guys.
Let the man cook.
Don't
I'm
get
just-
hung up on starting. Don't get overwhelmed. Just start. That's the key.
Yeah, I'm going based on preference. I'm going based on taste. I'm going based on the balance that I've come to intuitively know sounds like pretty solid in this room. I know this room. This I know my speakers. And I put in the time down here to kind of do this intuitively, right?
Bob Ross it, man. Just go.
Yeah, I'm not looking at meters right now or anything like that. I'm just going by ear.
Have to go to bed another
Myself kind of sink into the zone.
lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar,
Clean up and tame
pretty
everything.
liar.
What's that?
Clean up and tame everything. It's
I
just
know.
a
Clean up and
sea of
tame,
vocals.
clean up and tame, clean up and tame.
The only other thing I'll say to that in terms of just painting, you're also just thinking about this like I talked about in the demonstration, a balance of frequencies. So if you need more highs, turn up the things that give you highs a little bit more. If you need more low, you're just thinking of the overall balance. And it doesn't matter what genre of music, mastering engineers want balance. So we're working towards that.
Just kind of pick up some little pieces here. Gonna skip around a little bit now.
Beneath who you are inside.
The Angels.
Oh, you won't let me in, so let's pretend.
All of this stuff, like all these keys, all these synths and things like that, these are all, a lot of these are broadband sounds, right? Meaning they take up a lot of space in the frequency spectrum. So EQ carving is going to be like crucial in this section. But,
There's a lot of buildup in the mids that we're going to have to tackle tomorrow with the instruments and on day 3 with the background vocals.
yeah, so I'm thinking as I'm kind of volume balancing this, I'm getting to know the different pieces of the song and I'm formulating a game plan in my head here, right? And I'm thinking about, okay, what needs to stand out? What needs to be in the spotlight? What arrangement element is playing which role, right? So for me, carve out space for piano. Basically, you know, that piano, that's a constant throughout this whole song. All right. And it's kind of cleaning up that low end, the mud range for that piano to allow it to kind of step into the spotlight.
Yeah, someone noticed the piano was getting lost as things started to come in.
Exactly. Exactly. Good ear.
So please tell me right, yeah. Even after all we face, wonder if our love's the same.
Mud range happening.
It's been so long, I really need to feel your touch. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind.
Okay.
Please,
Just kind
Steve.
of quickly scanning.
Awesome, DJ.
See if I got into anything. For some reason, we're not showing any content here.
That's what you think.
Really crank it. I thus mistaken. There it is. There's a crash wave.
Yeah, even after all we've
Really, you're gonna see that. We've already started.
face, wonder if our love's the same. It's been so long, I really need to feel your touch.
Yeah, probably a little bit more reverb on that.
So please tell me lies, so I don't have to.
We need to carve out space for this vocal inside of that section as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the vocal sounds like it's quieter.
Yep.
If we take a look.
It's been so long, I really need to feel your touch.
Cool.
So please tell me lies.
It's actually a little bit louder and a little bit brighter, and it still sounds like it's getting buried because of everything else that's coming into the arrangement at that point, right?
These are the tricky things you got to figure out. So
So I'm just kind of going through, getting to know these tracks, making some notes.
So I don't have to go to.
And it looks like everything is now in.
I'm realizing something, Jake. I think we may have produced these may have mixed these vocals or produced them on the VIP day for that vocal challenge. And so you notice they're already pretty. We've gone through and done all that gain stuff that I was talking about in my demonstration today, where we've got things really kind of dialed in already before we compress it. We've gone through and done that manual gain automation, I think, to a lot of this stuff so that it's all very even. And what you have when you have too dynamic of a vocal is that some parts of the vocal start to poke out too much and some parts start to dip back. And what you want is a really solid dialed in vocal that's pretty even all the way through. And you go and do those moves pretty much with gain automation like Warren taught us 10 years ago. And then compress it a little bit more.
Yeah, let's just take a quick listen to this verse here.
No one ever saw you cry, saw you hide behind your walls. You build so high so you won't fall. You saw tears in all my pain, how I show it on my face. So desperate for your love. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar.
Yeah, do you know if these were compressed on the way in?
We
Or
may
is
have,
this
no, we didn't. I mean, we recorded these live. I don't think we compressed them at all.
Interesting.
But I think you did a VIP session where you actually worked with these, and I think we've already maybe done some of that work.
Got you. I'd like to get these.
You could do those verse ones maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, we can come back to that. I didn't mean to distract you.
Nah, it's all good. Cool.
Dane did compress the vocal during recording. Okay.
Yeah,
there
I
we
thought
go. Put that
so.
on there.
I thought he went through. I thought he went through something.
I'm glad a lot of you were there. All right.
It does look quite even for a vocal that's not compressed. Can you
Yeah.
zoom in on them? Like make them really large? What, just one of the files? That's compressed.
Right?
Totally.
Yeah, it's either compressed or it's hitting a pre, or the mic itself yeah, I mean, these days in digital, something uncompressed is super, super spiky on vocals.
Such a
Yeah.
dynamic vocal. I think we had to do a little going in.
Yeah. I mean, we did this in the last one. I tend to go in there. You remember Caleb and go in, but sort of almost syllable by syllable and bring up stuff naturally. Because it depends on the dynamic range of the singer. Some of them are so unbelievably dynamic that they just choke compression anyway. So you have to be really gentle on the way in and then gain it afterwards. But I mean, the vocal sounds great to me. I don't have any problems with it at all. It should be fairly easy to mix.
Yeah, we'll do a little bit on the verse just to show the idea and show you the different ways of doing that. Someone was just asking about the difference between gain automation and volume automation. So we'll go through it at some point and do that and show you a little bit of it, even though it's already pretty good.
Yeah, I might have the raw, to be honest.
We could pull in the raw too. Redo
Let's
it.
pull in the raw.
Oh, there's a raw vocal.
Might be.
I think so, man. Like, I think that would be a better teaching kind of like teaching moment. Give me just a moment. I'm gonna pull that up.
I think with songs like this, it's always, because it's so unbelievably dynamic from the beginning of the song, where it's like really intimate, and then it builds and builds and builds. It's something like this is really so much about automation.
Mhm.
Because you're trying to preserve any natural production that makes it grow. So not trying to be too aggressive on compression or EQ, because as soon as you get into that kind of chasing your tail, where you make something a little bit more even, a little bit fuller, and then you have to make something else a little bit more even, a little bit fuller. And before you know it, you end up with this really kind of very flat sounding mix. And then you're drawing back in all the automation which may have actually been built into the original production. So it's definitely. Do you have a reference that you did when you guys first produced it?
Yep. We have stuff. We'll pull those in here. We're going to talk about reference. In fact, Jake, do you want me to, if you need a minute, I could go into some of that mastering stuff.
Yeah, do that.
Okay. We're going to switch gears real quick while Jake pulls that up. We're going to come back to me. And I just wanted to, I prefaced this in the beginning. Obviously, we're mastering.com. We teach in reverse. We teach mastering first, and there's a really good reason for that. Our students have a lot of success with that. But this is a little bit of that. Again, we can't give you everything you need to be a mastering engineer. That would take, months and maybe years of work, working on getting your room dialed in, ear training, a deep understanding of the tools. And it's really just a lot about sharpening all of those tools to the point where it becomes very instinctual for you. And that's not a realistic expectation in 3 days, but we can give you some of this end in mind perspective. And we will give you a couple tools right now to focus on. These are something that I want you to try using on the mix that you're going to do for this challenge. We'll show you how to use them and see if it's helpful in helping you kind of figure out the balance of everything and the dynamics of everything. And again, the reason would be is if you give a better product to the mastering engineer, the less he has to do, the more he can just enhance and the better product you're going to get. If he has to fix anything, or if it's not ready, you're not going to get as good a product as you think. If you've ever got a master back from a mastering engineer and think it kind of doesn't sound great, it might not be the mastering engineer's fault, I guess is the point. So we're going to have a better perspective about what to send. The first thing, let's see. Mastering engineers think with an end in mind. They're thinking holistically. It's about room, ears, and tools. It's a global perspective. And mastering engineers really only work with broad brushstrokes. So mastering engineers are not going in and doing a bunch of surgical detail to things. So you have to really have worked all of that out before you send it to mastering. The first tool I want to have you start using this week as we do this is a frequency analyzer. So here's one from Waves. It's the PAS analyzer. And let me explain a little bit more about what you're looking at with this. I think there's probably other analyzers you can use. This one's $29.99. So if you just want to grab this one, let me show you how this one works and show you what the parameters would be. You're going to put this on your reference track and on the track that you're working on. You could also just use this as a reference check on your kind of your master bus to see if you're in a zone that's balanced. So let me explain a little bit about what each of these is looking like. On the left-hand side, we have the SAD mix we did at one time. This is something we did on one of our other Fix the Mixes, and the right-hand side is the reference. We can see a difference. And what we're looking at here is a range of about, I think the peak of the songs are hitting at about 60 hertz, and then they start to taper off. If you can't make out those numbers, the peak is at about 60 hertz, and then they're tapering off down to 16,000. And I know this analyzer well enough to know that a good sounding mix, pretty much in any genre, is going to look like what you see on the right-hand side. It's going to peak at about 60 hertz, and it's going to gently taper down. It's not flat. It actually is supposed to go down a little bit to varying degrees depending on the style, down to 16K. And the parameters you'd want to set on your PAS analyzer, if you want to have it look exactly like this, is you want your LF res to be 10 hertz, you want your detect to be RMS, and then your response somewhere between 300 and 400. So set those in. If you need to come back and listen to what I just said, you can listen to the replay, but write those parameters down. So what we're going to do, and we'll do this at the end as we do references, we're going to look at how balanced we are. The left-hand side is showing you in a comparison that it's pretty much the same in terms of low end, but then it dips dramatically in the mids, has something going on around 1K, and then there's almost no highs in it at all. So if you pulled this up and this was on your stereo bus, you know one of two things is happening. You're not hearing things correctly. Maybe your room is causing problems. Maybe your ears aren't quite trained. There's not enough high end in this, and there's too much of a roll off. It needs to look more like what's on the right hand side. But this is really valuable because even if your room is imperfect, even if the headphones you're listening on are imperfect, think about how valuable this information is. You want to send a mastering engineer something like what's on the right hand side. So even if you don't have a perfect room, you could get it to look more like that. And what you'll find is when you go listen in the car and listen in these other devices, which is usually how you check your mixes, you're going to find that it's a lot more balanced. Now you don't have to do as much checking back and forth, which speeds up your whole process. And that's kind of the point here, is speeding everything up. So we're going to show you we're going to do this PAS analyzer on our mix here in a second, but that's what we're looking for. We want that gentle slope. And this is something that you could start using right away to help your mixes sound better right out of the gate and have to do less back and forth in the car and other places. The other thing is a referencing tool. We're going to be using one of those. This is, I guess, for mastering the mix, but you don't even need to use a tool. The point of referencing is that you bring in a reference to listen to. And I don't think it really matters where you are, even advanced people. I think you should always be holding yourself accountable to an objective standard. It's really easy to spend too much time on stuff. It's really easy to get lost in your mixes. Pulling in a reference track, which is a track that's of a similar style and genre, that's a professionally produced, mixed and mastered, will give you an anchor to some objectivity. For all those rabbit holes and all those ways your ears have started playing tricks on you throughout the entire process, all of a sudden you're weighing it against, like what Rob was saying earlier, you're weighing it against something that is a frequency response that you should be shooting for. And especially for beginners, but I think all the way through intermediates and advanced, it's always good to hold yourself accountable and continue to learn from references. So we're going to pull in a reference. We're going to compare it to this track. We're also going to use a PAS analyzer on this track. And these are two tips you can start using right away to have more objectivity. Again, even if your ears aren't trained, you still need to do that stuff, but this is going to help you get there a little quicker. It's going to inform your ears a little bit more with your eyes. You can start to learn from it. And that's kind of the whole point of this. So Jake will do that in a sec. That's the cool stuff that mastering engineers are actually using these tools as well. So it's not something you just use in the mix, but something you could also use in the master. All right, Jake, did you find them?
Somebody found the raw vocals.
Hey. Oh, wow. Yeah, we did a lot of work on those.
Okay, yeah. That should be interesting as well, because it might correspond a little better with the intro and stuff like that. There might be a happy medium in the kind of gain that went on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Let's see. Play it as is.
No one ever saw you cry, saw you hide behind your walls. You build so high so you won't fall. You saw tears in all my pain, I will show it on my face. So desperate for you. No one ever saw you cry, saw you hide behind your walls. You build so high so you won't fall. You saw tears in all my pain, I will show it on my face. So desperate for your love. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar. No, it never is enough, never satisfied in love. Whether it's wrong or right, yeah. Even after all we face.
You guys catching what I'm doing here? I'm taking the gain of the region and just kind of pumping them up or pumping it down a little bit. And
Really
I'm kind of
broad
making,
strokes right now, and we're gonna go zoom in the more we go along.
yeah, exactly. This is like macro dynamic stuff, right? We're going to go in and kind of like with the scalpel and kind of manually touch some of these words and tail ends of phrases and things like that for enhancements, right? And to kind of like unbury.
I think for this production, this is making a lot more sense, because it's more Al Schmitty, you know. He would like do 1 to 2 dB worth of gain reduction on a vocal, and depending on how the vocal was recorded, of course. But it was a lot of fader moves. You know, when I worked with him, I would just watch faders kind of like dancing lightly. But you know, again, it all comes down to production. And it's not always possible to get that sensitive interplay between musicians, especially when you're working with virtual instruments and stuff like that. But this is already feeling like, oh yeah, this makes sense to me, you know.
Yeah. Yep. Performance wise. Yep.
Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar. No, it never is enough, never satisfied in love. Whether it's wrong or right, yeah. Even after all we face, wonder if our love's the same. It's been so long, I really need to feel your touch. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar, pretty liar.
I'm going to, let's see, choir. I'm actually going to group this into pads.
It's a very patty vocal, isn't it?
Inside, oh, you won't let me in. So let's pretend that we
It's a bounce, right? It's a processed bounce of what we got going on here.
Hmm.
Right. So somebody took all these.
There's a female one in there.
Yeah. Somebody took all these. Let's take a listen.
need. I like to find what you really think.
Where are and then we've got this. I'm gonna use that one.
Got it. There's a duplicate we found.
Yep.
Anyone who's wondering.
So it was processed in a very intentional way. So we're gonna keep it.
Need to find what you really think, who you are inside. Oh, you won't let me in. So let's pretend that we're alright. So please tell me lies, so I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar, pretty liar.
Yeah, way nicer place to
There's
start from.
There's a lot of work to do on these vocals, and I don't want to have to rush it. I say we save that for day 3 and just really do it right.
All right. That sounds great. Sounds great, man.
Go on a deep dive day 3 and really dig into those vocals and show
Yeah.
you, because it honestly, the part that we would maybe rush now for sake of time is the part that will make your song sound really expensive. That's what people will pay you for, is the stuff that you do on a vocal like that Warren taught us 10 years ago. So
It's also
not worry about the vocal too much right now in terms of volume. We'll just get everything pretty good, and then we'll really dive in and do all that nuanced gain stuff on day 3.
yeah, right on. Cool. Yeah, that's exciting. It's a different mindset too, right? Because like you're going in on such a detailed level. You have to switch the mindset over. For the majority of this demonstration, guys, been thinking about relationships. We've been thinking about the journey of the song as a whole, right? Taking a step back, the 30,000-foot view, right? And this is where I would actually, like in my workflow, if I was doing this for a client, right, I would step away from the desk, I would go out and take a walk or something like that. Then I would come back, mentally switch over the mindset and then get into detail mode with this vocal. So that makes a lot of sense, Caleb.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. And we'll get into people are asking about the difference between volume automation and gain automation. We'll talk about that on day 3 because it's important. Don't do any volume automation on your mixes. Do gain. Leave your volume faders alone so that you can adjust those quickly.
Yeah, I'll do some touch-up work. We'll do some touch-up work on day 3 when it comes to that kind of stuff, for sure.
Mhm.
So I think we're pretty close. What do you think? Want to bring up a
Sounded pretty
reference?
good. Yeah, let's get some references. Let's get the tools. I mean, we can already pull up the paths and see how are we doing.
Yeah, totally. Let's see if we're So if we're in the ballpark here.
Usually when I gotta go to the thickest part of the song for the Paz. It's gonna inform us right now.
So I don't have to go to bed another lonely night. You see,
With Sibilant City.
I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. Pretty liar.
And there's all of our keys.
All the minutes.
All of our synths.
Pretty liar. Pretty liar.
There's all that build up.
It's fun what you can see visually. You can see the sibilants, you can see the mud build up to confirm what we were already hearing. But yeah, now we've confirmed it.
You see, guys, there it is.
Sibilant City.
Their notes.
The Paz is on the master. Yep.
And this is just kind of like visually confirming.
Beneath, I like to find what you really think, who you are inside. Oh, you won't let me in, so let's pretend that we're alright. So please tell me lies.
And yes, Alien Villager, they did make the UI resizable in the Paz.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. I don't know where it is. I think it's over here. Oh.
Ah,
Ooh.
nice.
Yeah, so I think we're in the ballpark here. This stuff is going to get taken care of with some EQ. We'll take care of that stuff tomorrow. Some of these other things, like these sharper peaks, we're going to take care of all that stuff with compression, make it a little bit smoother to listen to. Awesome. Let's pull up some references here. These were references from the artist. So we've got Blames on Me. We've got another track, Daylight. We've got another track here. Let's see what we got.
What are we listening here for, Jake? How specific are we being?
Yeah, volume balance, right? And then just taking some mental notes about, 30,000 foot view frequencies.
Pretty
Dynamics.
big picture here. We're not getting super focused on little details, not yet. This is it's important to listen to a reference in the right mindset at different phases. Right now, it's just really big picture, general frequency. Are we in the ballpark? Yes or no?
That's right.
Guys, tell me a little bit about the reference.
Blames on Me from I'm not sure who the artist is. Not sure.
It's interesting. First time you clicked over to the reference, it felt like some of the words were being swallowed. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? It was
on the reference itself.
On the reference itself.
Yeah.
That's why I've got 3 of them in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like a low mid swallow. One of the things that I've done on vocals for years before I got OX Sound, which kind of has become a soothe to, has become a go-to on everything, is brighten and DS. So I sort of open up the vocals so there's always air around it, but continually de-essing. And that was like what, when Caleb's referencing, it's actually 8 years ago, but 8 years ago when I did that video on that was called something like making vocals sit perfectly in the mix or something, and it was talking about that, about going in and gaining and automating syllables and stuff that was getting lost, and a lot of the time, because I wasn't using a multiband or a dynamic EQ, I was brightening things, but then always making sure that they weren't getting so aggressively bright that you were taking a head off. And what was interesting when you went to that reference, it actually sounded like they weren't doing that. That words got lost.
Yeah.
I think you're starting off with this vocal just by doing some little less aggressive gaining. It already feels really good. But here's always the quandary. It sounds like most modern mixed pop music has had, I'm not going to do that old guy thing and say soul removed and this removed and that removed, because that's such a redundant kind of way of looking at it. But there is so much control added to it, so many clever OX Sound Soothe 2s and dynamics and multibands and stuff like that, that you end up doing what we were talking about, which is making everything sound really good and really upfront, and then pushing it back, where it might already be in that place. So it's interesting because you can create a rough blend like you're doing here, and use volume, use gain and stuff like that, and actually get 95% of the way there. And then it's almost a decision-making process depending on the genre of, like, is this almost finished? Is this, does this need light brightening? Does it need light mastering? And then it's releasable. Or do we go for modern radio or modern Spotify, I suppose, more realistically, and take it to the next level?
Yeah.
Quite often people send me mixes and I have to respond to them. Like, sometimes they send me really great mixes and I think to myself, what are you going for? How old is your artist? If your artist is 45 years old, I'm not going to turn it into a teenage pop song. But if it's a younger, artist that's speaking to, a whole age group that is so used to hearing Ariana Grande and Taylor Swift and all this stuff, where it's so heavily processed, I think that's a big part of what we do, isn't it? Where mixers are also producers these days. Mixing used to be taking already heavily processed recorded material and then rebalancing it. Up until very recently, very, very recently, now people are so used to, like, not printing with as much compression and EQ on it and letting the mixer take it over the line, or putting so many plugins on it, which is fine, don't get me wrong. Number of plugins is irrelevant. Does it sound amazing? That's all that matters, isn't it? Does it sound amazing? Sometimes it can be one plugin, sometimes it's 7. Doesn't really matter. If it sounds amazing, then it's great. But it's really a bigger question, which I love talking about. I love that discussion of, what are we going for? Are we preserving some integrity of a performance, which is great? And that's okay, it's one thing, or are we taking it to, like, modern pop radio? All I can say is that where you've got it now sounds like a great representation of the song.
The performance,
Like,
yeah,
it's a performance-based version of the song, which honestly in film and TV might work, because they don't want it to be like super in your face, because they don't want it to take away from the picture source. They don't want it to be slamming. They want it to kind of ebb and flow and breathe, which is why they always get stems and then mix your stems around the action of the movie. So yeah, it's great. I think this is really great, and it's almost a mix. It's almost like this is a mix,
Just with volume. There's a little carving out to do, but look how far we got with just with volume. But I love something you said there, Warren, that reminded me of something that we work with our students a lot in our program with how to work with clients. And references are good for an objective standard for us to hold ourselves to and an anchor, but it's also a way that we communicate with each other. It's hard to put language sometimes to musical terms. And so a way that a client can speak to you, like to Warren's point, what is it you really want? And the references they give you is probably more powerful than any of the words they could speak to you, because they're saying, I want this sound. I want an older sound. I want this more Ariana Grande sound. I want this. And then you're able to have a conversation about it. And that communication is essential if you want to work with clients long term. If you just guess, if you're not communicating, it's you're kind of shooting from the hip a little bit. So that's really, really important.
Artist rough mix tells you a lot about what they want to hear as well.
Yeah.
Right. So if they're sending a rough mix where I can always tell who the guitar players are, You know, if they're the guys, you know what I'm talking about.
I sort of agree with that. I think probably because I'm a guitar player first, and quite often you'll hear my mix with the guitars like super low. People are like, "You're a guitar player. Why aren't they louder?" I will say the one thing I agree with that sentiment. I would say you can always tell who the drummers are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The drummer mixes are very drum oriented, which
I-
isn't
I-
necessarily a bad thing, you know.
One caveat to that is sometimes your job as a mix engineer is to save your clients from themselves, but at
From
least need to have the
themselves.
conversation. It's at least a way that they're communicating with you. It doesn't necessarily mean there's no wiggle room for you to save them from themselves, which means sometimes artists are too close to their work to like know what's good or up or down or anymore. You know, it's but communication's important.
Right on. Let's jump back in here. Let's take a listen to some of these other references, see where we're sitting.
Need I like to find what you really think. The same vibe. Oh, I love it and I hate it at the same time. Hiding all of our sins from the daylight.
Probably going to go less in that direction.
Totally a different vibe though. But if the client was saying, "Hey, we really want this dark, muddy, distorted sound,"
Washy, you know,
part of what you need to do with mixing,
no real
really saturated.
ants poking through or anything like
I
that.
know the artist enough to know because I've worked with him for many years. That's not he wants a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want it.
There was a seasoning target.
Yep.
Well, all right, let's check out this one.
Need I like to find what you really think. 'Cause when we fight, you give me space and I communicate. And for a while, I thought that's what I should appreciate. Let me in. What I thought you were. Let's pretend.
Okay, so that's a good reference for many reasons, but the number one reason is it's a good reference to try and avoid, because it's a really nice mix. That one with the guy, I don't know what it was. It's really, really nice. I love it. But she's got attitude, angst, and you know, and power in her voice. She's like singing through seething teeth where he's not. He's like this. He's never getting there. So we have to be careful, because we could copy. I'm not saying you're going to do this, but I'm just saying we as mixers all here, we could copy that compression, that EQ, that immediacy, which would be quite amazing, but the vocal doesn't support it.
No.
His thing is gentle. It's loving. This is a song for his partner to hear and just be like, oh, you know, it's a connection thing. Even though this is super important, because even though the instrumentation of that song you played is pretty darn similar, there's a bit of strings in there, a bit of this, bit of that. We can't copy the roadmap of that, but it's great to hear something that has the same instrumentation, but it's always, especially with songs like this, which are highly emotional, led by the vocal. So it's almost like, you know, I think a really amazing R&B mixer, old school R&B mixer, would mix the vocal first, and then make everything else fit around it.
Yeah.
I know that isn't a rock or even a sort of modern pop way of doing it, but if you read some of those old kind of Mix magazine, Sound and Sound interviews from like the 70s and early 80s, there's a lot of guys in those days would really just mix the vocal. They would just get a vocal that just spoke to them with one instrument. So I think maybe that's the thing. What is our instrument that we feel, if we muted everything else, what is supporting the vocal the most? I think that would be the Al Schmitty way of doing this. He would go, it's the piano, it's the vocal, get my piano sounding great, get my vocal sounding great, and then start bringing in all the other instruments to support it and support the emotion.
Yep. And another to follow up to what we were talking about before in terms of communication, we don't know what they like about these references. So the follow-up question anytime you get a reference from a client is, what is it you like about this? They may say, well, not the vocal. And then we're right there with them, right? They may say, oh, I just like the way the drums sound in this, or I like the way the instruments sound in this. Again, more communication, the more clarity, the more upfront you can be, it's going to be a guide for you as you go forward.
Yeah, I always have in-depth pre-production conversations.
Pre-mixing too, pre-mastering, whatever it is.
Everything.
But are we in the ballpark? Who thinks we're in the ballpark? One's in chat. If we're, I hear maybe a touch, we could have a touch more low end, around 60 possibly, but we'll see what happens when we clean out the mids. But that's the only thing I was hearing.
Yep.
Ours is sounding pretty close. And remember, that's just with volume. It's really powerful to remember. He hasn't gone in.
I think this works. I think it
Yeah.
works on an Al Schmitty kind of, call him Schmitty, on an Al Schmidt kind of level. This would be very close to his kind of approach, or Steve Genowick, who was his right-hand guy for years. That it's all kind of less is more, and a get into the song and understand it, which of course is every great mixer. You should be doing that at all times. But I do wonder how much, the next couple of days we can push it to go somewhere between where we're at now and that super ultra modern radio Spotify immediacy. And I think it would be great to print this, Jake, as you've got it here, as a reference, and maybe Caleb, master this version
Just as is.
Just
as
right
is.
now.
So you're hearing like for like, because we tend to get a little carried away, you know what I mean? And if you mastered it as it is, so this would be a version, and then just put that to bed, just apply some more modern techniques of some cleverness here and there, and then come back and compare. I'd be really intrigued.
Who would like to see me master this right now on the spot?
Great, that'd be amazing.
I'll do it in 7 minutes or less.
7 minutes or less. Woohoo!
I like to
Very
challenge
specific.
myself.
I'm going to run to the bathroom. Well,
Yeah, I'll be done by the time
We-
you're back. Want to bounce that down and send it over? I'll master this right now, and then let's compare it.
You wanna
the
do a fiver?
master-
You
Huh?
want to do a 5 minute? You want to do a 5 minute break? Come back and master this. Well,
Yeah,
it's
let's give everyone a toilet break, coffee break, and then we'll master this real quick when you come back.
okay. Bouncing this out now. I'll send it to you in Slack.
Cool.
You guys, one in the chat if you're taking away some golden nuggets today. If this is helpful, if you're going to take some of this stuff and start to apply it to your own workflow. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
Just want to make sure we're giving you some good stuff here.
We're just getting started.
Yeah, I mean, that's right.
All we've done is volume.
That's right.
It's a great process. It compartmentalizes the process. It gives you a way to just systematically work through your mixes without having to feel overwhelmed. And you're doing a lot with intention today. We're gonna do a lot with intention tomorrow because of the intention we put into today. So
And it's awesome it's awesome to just hang out with fellow engineers and be able to talk about this kind of stuff and trade mindsets and trade workflow and trade these kind of golden nuggets between each other, because that's how we all grow, and we support each other and we hold the bar higher for each other, right? And we just keep climbing and we keep getting better and keep challenging ourselves, so on and so forth. Oh, you like that lighting setup?
beautiful. Did you
Some
send,
special,
just let me
that's
know.
some special effects. I'll show you some on day 2 and day 3.
ooh,
Open that loop.
it's a party?
All right. Be back in just a minute. If you guys have any questions for Caleb, don't hesitate to ask.
I'm here. Ask me questions. It's optional, Louise. I think there is value in making it fit properly. It's all about making the bass fit in the mix properly. With something that would maybe be just like bass and drums, it's not as important maybe as something with a full spectrum. What's the first and last thing you do in a master? It depends on the master. There's no formula for it. Often we'll start with some saturation and then roll off everything below 30 hertz. And then I'm going to solve problems and then I'll enhance. So it's like technical stuff, then solve problems, then enhance if need, solve problems if needed, and then enhance. Mix with Michael, does it have a gain plugin? If not, maybe a third-party gain plugin. I would assume that it has one built in and you can use automation lanes with your gain plugin. Referencing plugin, no, that's from a company called Master the Mix. Some effects were used, Nicholas, but the vocal sounds pretty raw. Some stuff we did some. It's all the stuff that just came really quickly or naturally to us. Yeah, we want to see a Jake and Warren guitar off on day 3. That's something to stick around for. End of day 3.
Our styles are probably a little different.
Oh, I don't want to hear excuses. I want to hear a guitar battle.
I want to hear some face melting.
Jaron, it doesn't matter which one you want to master in.
Oh, I hide it, Jake, but I did spend several years studying all like the Holdsworth stuff, so
Ooh,
I can do a lot of legato stuff. I just kind of hide it.
Kendall, always bounce the audio out and bounce the MIDI down to audio. Yep. First year started mixing mastering full time. How long did it take you to average mix the track? Yeah, it was a lot longer at first. It would take, 8 to 10 hours. Now it's more like 4 to 6 hours.
it's funny. I've been mine was like 6 hours on average. I want to say like between 4 and 6 hours on average. I've been spending a little bit more time though. I think I'm up to like 8 hours now.
Have I ever mastered a jazz song? Yep. And is it more challenging? No, it's all about the same. It's the lens you're looking through. Balance is balance, dynamics are dynamics, loudness is loudness. It doesn't matter what style. And you'll find that you don't master stuff all that differently, whether it's an EDM track or a jazz track. It's per a conversation with the client, you push loudness maybe louder, but I always try to talk them out of that. Best advice for balancing complex low end and sub kick and bass. Well, I won't, better than answering that in words. We'll show you that tomorrow.
I'll show you tomorrow. Because we've got 3 or 4 bass tracks along with some synths that are munching up some of that sonic energy too. So
don't worry about the anti-phase and PAS. I don't really think about it there. I listen for phase. Sorry, I'm way behind. There's like.
Yep, this master is going to be in the box.
What's a good widener to use? Don't use wideners. Get your width in your mix.
I like that answer.
That's the least destructive way to do it.
Who's in Germany or close to Germany here? Do we have any Austria? I see Vitti. Me? Oh, great. Sweden, Berlin. Oh, Berlin. I love Berlin.
I got way behind on questions. I apologize, everyone. I have 99 plus.
Warren just buried them.
Yeah, sorry. I thought. Sorry, I didn't realize you were asking a question. I thought you were actually just tweaking it. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was behind before you said anything. I was like 99 behind.
I'm sorry.
Keep asking. If I didn't get to them, just keep asking. We'll get to more. But who wants to see me master this? Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, probably do some some automation on day 3. Somebody asked. Some like enhancement moves probably, right? So I'll do some clip gain automation on those vocals, and then I'm gonna probably do a little bit of enhancement for some other things. So we'll see what we can do.
All right, who wants to put me on the clock?
I got you.
What's this tail?
I'll go and make a cup of tea while you do it.
All right, when should I begin?
Give me a test of the audio real quick.
Can you hear it?
So desperate for your love.
Yep, stereo.
So
We're good.
please tell.
Good.
Yep. 3, 2, 1.
Cheated. I went on 1.
Subtracting a second.
You should definitely.
So he's not going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat here, guys. Caleb's not going to spend a lot of time like explaining what he's doing or teaching or anything like that. He's kind of racing you against the clock. So just try to keep your eye on some things, write down questions, and ask after.
So annoyed. They reset all my UAD plugins and now everything's lost.
Ha! 7 minutes.
I hate when they do that.
The amount of time I've sat there unclicking UAD.
So annoying.
I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I
So Waves, yeah, we'll be using Waves for the mix tomorrow. This was a little bit of an impromptu detour.
Oh, I should have used Wave. I don't have
So-
my Wave stuff loaded up. Sorry, you're gonna have to.
We'll probably do
Sorry.
a Waves master on the last day, but yeah, Jake's gonna be using Waves plugins.
Yeah,
all the
we'll have
time.
that primed up. I don't even have some of that installed yet because I didn't think I was doing this today. But don't. Now I'm distracted. What was I doing?
5 minutes.
What was I doing? What was I doing? Oh yeah, I remember. God. I hate when they do this. It makes it impossible to find anything.
have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed another lonely night.
These mids are wild, man. I have to suck all the soul out of the song to get those right. It needs to be fixed.
No, but this is when you put on the
Fixed.
I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see,
All right, here's before and after.
I have to go to bed another lonely night. You see, I don't mind. You can tell me anything to make me satisfied. I have to go to bed and
It's a little crunchy. That's hard to.
I don't mind the crunchy. I mean, you know, that's matter of taste. I mean, there's so much stuff that's crunched to all schnizzle on the radio and Spotify and stuff like that. And
Oh,
sometimes
gross.
sometimes it benefits, and sometimes it doesn't.
Oof.
I actually thought the biggest move that I love is when you put the Clairphonic on, which I play with but don't use that often. I mean, you know, I know it's the reverse engineer, so I know the principle. And this is probably a really good. I will open the door for you to have this conversation for people that aren't familiar with what's unique about what you teach. So what I heard there, and I talk about this all the time because people come to me and when we listen to mixes, I'm forced to solve problems on Masterbus because I don't have their multi-tracks of the mix. So I can't go into their mix and fix it. But what I do is go, okay, here there's too much low mid build up, and I pull it out and I go, problem is it sounds better for 75% of the song, but there's this whole section here where it's the worst thing to do. So you need to find out where the low mid build is coming up and put it on at the source of the problem, not fix it at the master bus. And I know that's really a naive way of explaining what you're teaching, because you're saying, if you can apply these tools, find out where the problems are, you can go back and actually solve them at the mix stage. So
Right.
I've been in rooms with Bob Ludwig and Stephen Markison and Ted Jensen, where Mark Ender has mixed for me. And I can tell you, all three guys, all they did was level match. That was it. There are mixers, you know, and when we did the second Frey record, we had one track that Mark did that got stripped in, and we had to turn his down. Not because it was crunching or distorted or whatever. We could not get Michael Brower's anywhere near as loud and clean. To bring his up to be the same volume as Mark's loud, beautifully clean, slamming mix just sounded like pure distortion on Michael's, because Michael uses so much outboard and parallel, blah, blah, blah. As soon as you got the level up, it was like, we couldn't do it. But Ender's was like clean, like slamming, just like loud. And yet you couldn't believe it because it was just like as loud as any humanly possible.
Yeah.
And it's because, and he uses, I think he might have a Pultec on the mix bus, maybe. And he definitely has SSL compression on there. He mixes, at least he did at that point, believe it or not, still to an Alesis. What was that Alesis called? Anybody remember the
I forget. I have.
oh, what was it called? Yeah, I know. He and no, not a 3630, definitely not. Masterlink. Thank you, David. Good. Oh, David. Hey, David. Yeah, Masterlink. You could just hit that a little bit harder and it had a way of just folding in. And so my point is like, there are people that can mix that don't need to be mastered because they are that
This
good.
is a huge point. This is a huge
Yeah.
point. I think the best way to think about mastering is that in a perfect world, a mastering engineer wouldn't have to do anything. Maybe bring the volume up to industry standard. But the less the mastering engineer has to do, the better. It can be subtle, maybe subtle enhancements, but basically nothing, and just bring it up to volume. And to your point, let's use this as a teaching moment. I'm looking at this and everything except 2 plugins I just did were all fixing stuff that could be fixed in the mix. Let's pull this one up. I added 60 Hertz because we were noticing there's low end missing. Where should that be fixed? In the mix. In the Pro Q3, why am I dipping all the mids out? because we haven't processed those. Why am I putting a shelf up here? Because we haven't had a chance. Now, this mix doesn't have a lot of high-end information. We're going to have to create some in the mix using saturation. We're going to do that tomorrow. This is all stuff that should be fixed in the mix. I shouldn't have to do any of that. Soothe, I shouldn't have to do any of that. That's more trying to take mids out. Clariphonic is, again, adding high end to a track that should have that in from the mix. Maybe I kiss a little bit of this on a master. Maybe I do a little bit. Maybe I don't have to do any at all. This is only because there wasn't enough of it in the mix. And this Weiss de-esser, guess why I'm using this? Because I'm bringing up the high end. What didn't we do yet in the mix? DS. So I'm hitting all those DS, trying to control those DSs. Now, is this the right way to have to do this? If so, and this isn't a terrible sounding mix. That's the point. I've had mixes sent to me that are about this good. Look how much I'm not able to do because the problems exist in the mix, and I'm only trying to put a Band-Aid on something that should be fixed there and not in mastering. This is the whole point of the reverse engineer and the way we teach. Once you learn mastering, you start to see the problems as they come to you, and then you fix them in the mix, you fix them in the production, so that by the time you send it to mastering, the mastering engineer has to do almost nothing. That's why these mastering engineers that we were teaching years ago were getting these insights. It was filling in these gaps in knowledge. So really valuable stuff here. I made it sound better, but
right. No, I love this. I mean, this whole process has been fantastic because we've uncovered lots of different things, which obviously is, peeling the onion, isn't it? We're peeling the onion here, and we're realizing that there is no one way, as the old joke in England goes. Rob's probably heard this 10,000 times. There's no one way. I don't know. It's so grotesque. There's no one way to skin a cat. I don't know where that came from, but it's what the English.
That's a British phrase. I thought everyone just said that. 1,000 ways to skin a cat.
But I mean, just like, really? Of all the analogies.
I don't like that. So I love that quote.
Jake, somebody else wear I hate cats t-shirt.
There's only one way if you want to do it properly.
Oh God,
that's gonna be my live event. I'll teach you how to do it properly.
But I think that's that's what this is all about. It's about peeling the onion. Yes, you're gonna, but I don't believe I've ever worked with anybody that I admire. Yeah, that's the right phrase. Anybody that I admire that thinks they know exactly how to do something. They're always being challenged. So I think that's a good thing to sort of like remind people, like, because there might be 1,000 different things that you need to know, but you can create great mixes with a percentage of that, but then you'll be challenged by something else. So you learn a new skill set, and then a new skill set, and a new skill set. I had a big meeting this morning, and we were talking about that and how there's niche. There's definitely niche people, but the reality is in any genre there may be 5 or 6 people that kind of dominate doing only one genre. Probably less in some genres, to be honest. Probably with pop, it's probably Serban, Manny to a certain extent, Jason Joshua, probably right up there with Serban, and then other people that kind of come and go. But it's pretty darn niche. But if you want to make a really, really good living, you want to learn those pop techniques, you want to learn those rock techniques, those metal, those country, that whatever, and then there's plenty of people I know that are making 250 grand a year that you've never heard of. They're working their asses off, but they're doing what I would call like a jobbing. Does that translate? I know that's a very British thing to say, like jobbing profession. What are you doing? Well, this week we've got a voiceover artist coming in, and I'm doing some dialogue stuff, and I'm recalling a mix in the morning of an album that I just finished. And next week I'm doing, drums on an EP, and then recalling mixes from the other thing that I did. I mean, I know so many people like that are just slammed and busy and working, and they're learning techniques in all genres and different ways to think about things, And to me, that makes sense, because all of the greatest people that we grew up with, their resumes are so vast and so, what's George Martin? Everybody thinks Beatles. Well, yeah, he also did Blow by Blow by Jeff Beck, which I still think is the biggest selling guitar album of all time. So it's a jazz, funk, rock album. What has that got to do with Please Please Me? Whoa, yeah. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, exactly.
It's a whole different mindset working with musicians of that caliber, are thinking in a completely different way with almost no vocal whatsoever, So anyway,
Yeah, it's
God bless it.
yeah, thanks, Warren. We appreciate you. We're really glad to have you here and glad for all
It's
your
fun.
insights you give to our students in our program, and then for your willingness to be on this free challenge that we're doing for everybody. I hope you're getting a lot out of it. Again, we're only just tip of the iceberg. We've only just done volume. There was a lot I couldn't fix, so let's go fix it in the next 2 days. We'll remaster at the end. And yeah, but here's a little bit of homework for y'all, because I want everyone to have a kinesthetic opportunity to really do this yourself too. So here's some action items. Get a project you're working on. Get one from us if you don't have that. And just save an alternate. Let's start over. Let's just start the process from the beginning, since that's what we're doing. Save an alternate version of the process. Do a save as. Let's start over. Remove all processing plugins. Bring all the faders down to negative infinity like we just did. Do all your prepping and editing, and then do a volume only mix. See how far you can push it with just volume. No plugins for frequencies or dynamics or space, just volume. See how far you can push it. And it's a lot of fun. It will be rewarding if you'll take the time to do it. I know that there's only a little limited time and you'll have lives between now and tomorrow, but do your best. And if you want to, share that volume only mix in school. Get in there and do your best and then share it. Let's see where we're at and have that sense of community. Again, if you need a link to school, Mike could drop some chats, some links there in the chat, but you want to be in the school group so that you can get the access to these replays, start engaging with fellow musicians and continuing to ask questions. So
Are we okay to share the multi-tracks from this session?
I think we should. Let's just do it.
Okay.
Go ahead and share those.
Yeah, I'll get that in the school group. So guys, keep your eyes open.
And give them the crappy vocals. I mean, not crappy.
The good vocals.
Give them the
EJ
unprocessed vocals.
does not do crappy vocals, dude.
What is it?
And just a heads up, I'm going to be posting the replay in the classroom section of school. Again, if you haven't joined school, I'll keep posting the link here. I'm also going to send it out via email. So keep an eye on your email. It takes a little bit of time for us to download the session and render it and get it uploaded. So just give us a little bit of time there. But it'll be in school later tonight. And then I'll also send it out via email. I'll also send out the links for day 2 tomorrow. So don't miss it. And yeah.
Also, so replays will be up for 7 days for anyone who's not in VIP. For anyone who's in VIP, you've got lifetime access to those. Sometimes we do questions at the end, but we've already gone quite long today. So anyone who's already in VIP and submitted a question, we'll save all of those for the VIP day on Friday, and then we can go really in depth.
A couple of people, I jumped. Sorry, Rob, to interrupt you. I jumped onto the Q&A stuff that had come up, and I was answering some questions in there because it gave me an option to answer those earlier on. So when somebody said I looked like I was bored or something, I was actually typing responses to them. So so people were asking questions. I was responding in the Q&A.
Thanks for doing that.
Oh no, it's fun. But Rob, there was a few people asking. Actually, I was trying to read all the questions. Going, is it too late for them to upgrade to the VIP?
No, let me grab the link. Basically, if you do that before Friday, then it's not too late. There's no point doing it after Friday. So I'll post the link. Let me grab that.
Yep, we'll do a whole mix in one day. On the VIP day,
VIP
follows these 3 days.
Yeah, that's a marathon session, guys. So we'll do like
5-6 hours.
I'm going to be mixing, but I'm also going to be teaching a lot, right? So we're going to dig pretty deep into the workflow. We're going to move quickly, right? But we're going to have breaks, every hour or so. A little less formal, but be a good time.
A smaller group. Yeah, and tomorrow, EQ, reverb, compression, all the fun stuff. So definitely anyone who's here now, I expect all of you to be here tomorrow, because if you've stuck it out, then you've shown you can do it, and you've shown you're the cool.
This was a lot of fun. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. You've been a great chat. Warren, thanks for being here. Jake, thanks for your great demonstration. Michael, thanks for getting us all here. Rob, for your insights on everything. Much love to all of you for showing up, spending your time with us. I know you have other things you could be doing, but I'm glad you're trying to become better at this, and hopefully you picked up some wonderful gold nuggets today. We're going to dive in deeper tomorrow. A huge day 3, mixing vocals. That's going to make just really separate the wheat from the tares on that one. We're going to make the mix sound really expensive. So, all right, we'll see you all tomorrow, same time. In the meantime, hop into school, start interacting, start working on your mix, and just have a beautiful evening. See y'all.
Cheers, guys. Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.